In this episode of Homefullness, I'm interviewing Lyndall Parris of the Narara Ecovillage, visionary and founder and now current resident. I've met Lyndall in person at a facilitators event and also at Narara Ecovillage and spent time with her. And we just jump right into more of the details of what it's like to be a visionary and a founder and lead a group of people on the journey of creating a village from scratch. So I just wanted to go into the details of Narara Ecovillage so you get an idea of what it is that we are talking about, where it is. There is a website, and so I'm just going to pull some of the details of the village from there. You can then go to the website, and there's so much to explore. This is just to set the context. So I'm going to read from their website. Narara Ecovillage is an intergenerational residential community on the central coast of New South Wales, Australia. Surrounded by bushland, close to beaches, easy drive, about an hour from Sydney. It was founded in 2006, and they bought it in 2012, as she says in the interview, when they were able to finally purchase the property. It has over 50 homes in Stage 1, with another 50 lots for Stage 2, and there are lots that are still available for people that are interested to live there. It's situated on about 56 hectares in the Narara Creek Valley, around the site of a former horticultural research station. So before they even moved in, there were 3 hectares of community buildings, 12 hectares zoned for residential, 18 hectares for agricultural and gardens, and then the remaining 24 hectares are native forest and bushland. And they chose to really just develop their housing in a portion of that site in order to cluster the development and leave the remaining property available for ecological purposes. So that's been a really good start to that community. They do have membership, can be either individual, couple, friends, or family. And it costs $30,000 to join the cooperative, which is the membership structure, giving people then an opportunity to purchase land and build their home there. And they do have some members that do not live there. And people are also required to do 6 hours a year to what they call the Asset Protection Zone, which are working groups to keep the general land maintenance going. And people can exit by selling their cooperative membership and to sell their property. And of course, new buyers have to also then become members of the cooperative. And then they have building standards. So although there is a lot of diversity of housing types and structures on that property, it's not covenanted to a particular look. The designs do need to be run by the fellow neighbors to make sure that it does fit somewhat into the look and feel of the community and that it's not going to be in anybody's visual way. And obviously, they prioritize more ecological ways of building. The other thing which I find really cool is that they're keen on having more affordability and more intergenerational. So people who wouldn't necessarily be able to afford a share on their own and attracting younger families. So what they're doing is they've got this group called CLAN, Collaborative Living at Narara. And that allows people to get together to meet each other online. They meet weekly on a Wednesday evening, and people can then meet others who have an interest to be on the community and perhaps come in to buy a share together, where there could be multiple dwellings on one share. So they're encouraging people to come that don't fit within their current demographics, so looking at younger families, single women, young people. And they're looking at different affordable housing options. Could it be that there's granny flats or a tiny home or different ways of developing? It's really exciting that they are fostering this sense of people exploring together how they can live in this eco-village. And then on this page of CLAN, they talk about the different aspects of how much it would be to sort of share with other people. And they've got a podcast so that you can listen to some of the stories that they have been producing. It looks like they've gotten up to 6 or 7 episodes, and it's called Eco Living Podcast. And they also have the Narara Eco Living Network, which is a not-for-profit education and outreach body established by people in the cooperative to promote sustainable living in all its forms. It is now a registered charity, so people who are able to give to that can get a tax gift receipt status, which has been very helpful for them in their fundraising efforts. And they have a page on eco-sustainability where they talk about the sustainable homes and building standards. What I find really interesting is that they have a smart grid. Lyndall talks about the fact that they produce 7 times the amount of energy than they require. They got a federal grant of $1.2 million through the Australian Renewable Energy Agency that helped them to fund their smart grid, one of the nation's most advanced and environmentally friendly smart grid transformers, so that manages their solar power and also feeds it back to the grid. So because they were innovative in their approach, they had the opportunity to be a pilot for the Australian government to showcase what localized smart grid system could look with. The other thing that catches a lot of communities up is about water management, where they have to tap into the sewage system or not be able to capture and store their own water. But at Narara, they have obtained a water utility license under the New South Wales Water Industry Competition Act to manage their own drinking water, recycled water, and sewage treatment systems. So well done to them to localize their water systems. I won't go too much more into the details of Narara Ecovillage. There's so much to share. But if you wanted to know more about what it's like to live there, to be a member, or you want to use it as inspiration for the development of your own housing project, or maybe you're in government and you want to see the ways that the government in Australia has been able to partner with Narara, you can learn a lot by going to their website, which is nararaecovillage.com. So I'm going to leave you to do all the exploring on your own, and we'll put the links in the show notes. And of course, highly recommend visiting Narara Ecovillage. They are just outside of Sydney, a quick train ride away. It's easy. From Sydney, you just get off at Gosford, and from there, maybe somebody from the Ecovillage would pick you up. That's what happened to me, and that's the way I was able to visit when I was there with the Housing Older Women Engagement project that I was a part of in September 2024. Welcome, Lyndall Parris, to the Homefullness Show. It is so good to see you again, even though it's on Zoom. The last time we were together at the Narara Ecovillage, standing side by side and participating in some workshops there, which was really special for me to be there at a time when you were doing that as a community and that you had the time to meet with me and that you've made the time today. Thank you so much.
No, thank you, Zola. It's a pleasure and so lovely to see you again.
We're going to be talking about your journey from a feeling to a vision to being in Narara Ecovillage, what it's been like for you to be a founder, a visionary, and to be a resident there and continuing to grow the community. I wanted to start with, what does homefullness feel like, look like to you?
I suppose homefulness to me is a feeling of belonging and also perhaps a feeling of contentment. And contentment's an interesting one because I don't, I think, show the outward world my contentment. I think, that outwardly I'm always trying to push the boundaries in a certain area, but there's contentment in that and satisfaction and feeling of I'm in the place that I really want to be. And I believe in that place so much that I'm happy to work for it.
Yes, and work for it you have.
Mhm.
That's great. Can you tell us then about the most interesting home, or could be even neighborhood, that you've ever been in?
I've been pretty lucky most of my life to never be unhappy where I was at that time. But if I had to judge that as a 76-year-old woman, I'd say it's now and here at Narara Ecovillage. As a young married, going to the country and living on a sheep farm, bringing up our 3 kids there, I was happy. It wasn't until I got to about 50 and the youngest child was well on the way that I started this thought process perhaps we could live a bit differently. Perhaps there could be even more happiness by sharing stuff. We had a swimming pool and a tennis court. Why would just an individual family have that? So those little niggly things came in, and I thought, my God, I can have even more happiness. And so I guess the journey to that. And I must say, right up the beginning, the journey to Narara Ecovillage is very what's in it for me. It was very guided by what I wanted. I didn't have necessarily a save the world thing, but I knew that I wanted to know more about ecological stuff, more about the social stuff, how it could be better. And of course, the economic stuff as well. It's the three legs of the stool, all pretty much equally important to pay tribute to.
What I'm hearing is you feel like at the moment you are in the most interesting home and neighborhood, which is fantastic that you've been able to create that and that you're living it, that you created it for yourself primarily, but obviously a lot of other people shared this desire to want to be in a more connected neighborhood. I'm reading your book where you talk about your growing up, family get-togethers, a sense of community and being able to do a lot of things with people who are all around you made you feel like, yeah, this is something I'd like to have more often, and that you've managed to create that in a neighborhood. I'm only about a quarter of the way through your book, but it's fascinating that you've written a book on this journey where others can learn about this path. I was wondering if you could tell us about that feeling that you had that then led into a visual imagery, and then how you brought people along on this journey with you. You're not a professional property developer. So how did you even get the courage to do something as big as Narara Ecovillage?
Once the sort of little niggle starts, I really want something, I think most people would take a step in that direction. And I think it's just a matter of keeping those steps going in that direction. And no matter how long it takes, I really thought that I was not going to be living here after difficulty struck. I didn't think I was going to be part of it. And so I had to ask myself, would you continue taking these steps if you were in the relay race and were never going to get there? Your turn was never going to come. You weren't going to sit on your veranda in that rocking chair looking out at this creation or this eco-village. And I said yes. So I think that's a key thing. Is there something that is so compelling to you that you can't stop, even if you were going to die before you achieved it? And that's as it was for me, just not knowing, but just keep taking the steps. I used to say, it's a common saying, but you can eat an elephant if you do it 1 teaspoon at a time. My daughter and I were traveling around France in a car for a month, and we were going to lots of communities and eco-communities. And this woman, I told her that night, and the next morning we were leaving, and she came out to see me off in the car, and she said, Lyndall, could I just say to you, eat something else along the way? And also keep it in the fridge. And it was just so sweet. But I was eating this elephant. I'm still eating this elephant, a teaspoon at a time. But I do keep it in the fridge, and I do eat something else along the way. I've loved that visual to the extent that people will often send me elephanty type things still to this day. That's a little bit of where I think we were heading.
Would you describe Narara Ecovillage for us, both the sort of visual, if we were to walk around, what would we see, and then some of the social aspects of what it's like to live there?
Yeah, Narara Ecovillage is a property of about 60-something hectares, and it's surrounded on 3 sides by forest and the other side by the edge of a city. It's about an hour and a bit north of Sydney and easy to visit. You can get here by train. It was an old horticultural institute owned by our state government, and it came on the market. We'd been looking at property, maybe 100 or more properties, and then this came up and fulfilled a goal that we were interested in because we set up an incorporated association called Sydney Coastal Ecovillage. It was a guide to what we were looking for. Some land near Sydney, not too far from Sydney, coastalish. We're about 25 minutes from the nearest beach. and Ecovillage. So it was going to be eco in its design and villagey in its feel. But then we found this place. And when we visited it, my husband, after looking at lots, just said, this is the place. And so then once we decided on the place, it was, how the hell are we going to get this place? It was on the market and we had to put in a tender. We found some developers over in Western Australia. My niece saw that this guy was going to be in Canberra and told me about it. So we went to Canberra, met with this guy and thought we could work with him. Yes, he could raise the money, and yes, he wanted to develop a model. It just sounded so great. And I liked him. We both liked him because my husband and I are in the same book, but not always on the same page. We both liked him. So that was important to have his opinion of him. And so we paid some money and we became the first project to help develop their model. They had a wonderful vision to churn out, really. And we put in a bid for $9.5 million. Certainly we didn't have that sort of money, but we were confident that these developers could raise those funds. And that year, the global financial crisis hit and their company went under. We lost them from our journey. They lost their eco-village that they were developing in Western Australia, and it was pretty dark. And so nobody was going to buy this property at that time. The government took it off the market, and that was in 2008. Then it was off the market for 2009, 2010, 2011, and it didn't come back on the market to 2012. Now, when you're so passionate about a particular project and a piece of land, knowing in your heart that it was the best piece of land in the world. I'd been traveling because my daughter was having babies in America, and I was traveling around Europe and the UK because my son was having babies in the UK. So I was looking at communities worldwide. I knew that this was the place for me. It was very dark times. And so what do? You just put one foot in front of the other. You don't know why, and you go down dead ends. I went down dead ends. And then there were times that I had little wins, which you don't expect. The manager here liked me and liked the dream and the project because he loved this place. He didn't necessarily want to see a crazy normal development go here, and it was going to be developed. So there was no doubt about that. So he allowed me to have every month what we called an open day or an open morning here, where we could get people into a hall. There was a hall here. We were very lucky because there was quite a bit of infrastructure on this particular site. It wasn't a greenfield site. And so we were able to get up there and say, when we buy this place, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And so the dreaming was really important. I see that now looking back. I see the things that kind of helped. We had drawings and a website, and we started newsletters. And of course, that went for a long time. I was very lucky because I had a husband. I gave up work. I was an accountant. So I gave up work because I could see that I couldn't do both. It's very hard when you're an accountant because I cared about my clients and I would be working quite a bit. So I gave up my work for this. But I had a husband who was very passionate about his work in renewable energy and was more than happy to go to work every day and keep the mortgage paid and keep us fed. And don't forget my 3 children then were pretty launched. So I must say at this point, this is the strength. If you can stay healthy, this is the strength of a woman turning 50. And for me, turning 50, it might be for somebody else, it might be 45, it might be 55. But don't be too frustrated in that early days. You've got a mission, and your mission is to get those 3 little ones and your life with peace and to a certain stage. But then let that animal roar when that's happened. And I think that's, looking back, what was happening to me. I just had time to lift my head up from what am I going to feed the kids for lunch or what am I going to have for dinner. I had that opportunity to say, okay, what now? And then I've been blessed with wellness to this point. We don't know tomorrow, but I can say that from 50 to 76, I've had the energy, enthusiasm, and health to move something forward that's been really deep in my heart. So guide me back to where I need to be.
Those are important pieces to put forward. It's not only just that you had a vision, but you had good health and you are energetic and optimistic. You see the positive. I can tell that from your book reading. I just get this perpetual positivity, which I think one almost has to have in doing such a project, because there will be setbacks, and it can't be that those setbacks become spirals of either self-esteem setting back or just going down that it's never going to work. So I see many elements within your personality and character that have been really influential. You had a helpful husband who shares this passion and is able to financially support the children. You had opportunities to look around, and the fact that you were very committed to making it happen and stayed committed. And it sounded like then you put those practical pieces in place to keep building on the momentum with other people being able to come in to your dream with the newsletter, sharing any steps you were taking, the getting together physically with people, being on the land. So all that gives that tangible and gives people the feeling like, yes, it is possible. So the question was around people who haven't been able to be at Narara, what it looks like and what it feels like to be a resident there.
I think it's possibly as perfect as life can get on this planet. You know, there's a lot of kindness here, and it's in our aim. And we have worked on our aim. It's a couple of years old now, but nobody's suggesting we change our aim at the moment. So I think it's still pretty current. It's friendly. This is an intentional community. So at that higher level, that's the bottom line, or top line, or whatever we want to call it. People who don't want to be intentional, neighborly, the things that go along with intentionality, then they don't have to be here. Why would they want to be here? What would be in it for them to be here? It's not cheap. We're like a suburb of Sydney now. We're trying to work affordability into the project by being incredibly creative. And that's very exciting. I look out and I feel warmth when I see somebody walking past. I know that person, and I have little thoughts about that person. Oh, I wonder how they're going at the gym. Or, oh, gee, did they have that test last week? I wonder how that worked out. Oh my God, they're back from Italy. Isn't that amazing? Oh, look at the amount of carrots they're carrying. There's knowledge. And those thoughts are warmth promoting in my body. I know that if I want to, I can go down to our coffee cart. We haven't got a restaurant yet. We now have the zoning for it. When we work out how to get the funds, we'll probably move towards that. In the meantime, we've got a coffee cart. And what doesn't go through that coffee cart's not worth eating anyway. If I want a bit of a chat or something, I just have to go out there, buy myself a chai latte and sit there. And in time, somebody will arrive. I'll be up for a bit of a chat, a break from their desk or their kids. And I think events are easy. There's dancing in the dark on Wednesday night. Turn up if you want to. There's often a movie on. There's often a musical gig on. There's exercisey type things happening. There's dance, Zumba things happening. And there's something amazing about having not to get in the car to go somewhere and just to wander down to the village hall where there's some action happening. And I think probably we've got to be careful that we don't become too insular, that the world out there is a bigger place. And I certainly am still attracted to the world out there. And we're not too far from Sydney. We can jump on a train and get to Sydney within an hour and a quarter. So a day trip to Sydney is very easy. So there are so many things that I love about here. Being healthier is easier here because I've got other friends here that will give me little facts and pointers. And I see that the community, there's some lovely stories that I'm going to write up at some point about how the community is helping deeply healthy. That depth of health certainly is here. I'm much more ecologically friendly now because I've learnt about the recycling processes, and we've got systems here that assist that. I can take my chook food down to the common chooks. I don't really want to have chooks myself, but that's good. The composting, I don't have to do the composting myself, but I can contribute to that. We've got the forest next door. I can hardly go a day without going to the forest and talking to my new best friends, the trees, and there's an arboretum there. So there's some ancient trees that are a lot older and lived on the earth a lot longer than me, can give me some advice about how to live as an older being. I don't honestly know how life could be any better for me.
If I were to think about a place, if I could snap my fingers and just live somewhere, it actually would be at Narara Ecovillage for the 3 days that I was there, I really felt a sense of people with their arms out, welcoming me. The diversity of things that were offered when I was there, from the meditation that was in the morning to then a yoga session. We had a brainstorming and vision around where economically, financially, the eco-village was going to be more sustainable. And that was a very inclusive, participatory, and energetic process where people were just flowing with ideas and all of it was being captured. That was really exciting to be part of the community. I was invited to a potluck that was also to welcome me, which I felt very privileged to be given such a welcome. And there was an open day where I was able to have a tour with the history and even go into a house to hear the story of at least one house getting built there. Hearing all the other things about the community was really nice to have that option to do that any month. And I was invited to so many things while I was there by people, and I could hardly even do it all in the 3 days. Then I see the things that are being offered every month because I do get your newsletter and think, wow, that is so vibrant. There is so much going on there. Have to go out to get a lot of one's needs fulfilled. So I really love that you've got that real village. It really is a village. And that kindness that you were saying, I got that feeling from the people there.
Yeah. And this is a really great point for me to say it's not utopia. And there are strong individuals that have thoughts. I think those edges are being knocked off us. They talk about the stones in a river. I think that they are. We're learning to be cooperative and collective. We were born in nuclear families and brought up to be independent in that. And it's difficult for some of us to ask for help. That's our learning to be able to do that. There are people, I love dogs and cats. I hate dogs and cats. I'm vaccinated. I'm not vaccinated. I want a sign at the front gate saying keep out. I want a sign at the front gate saying welcome. So we have all these different things, but what binds us all is that top line or bottom line of intentional community. If you want the intentional community to be neighborly, which infers a lot of other things like peacefulness and contentment and excitement. If you want all that, then we have to work for these things. And we have sociocracy as our governance, which I think does head some conflicts off at the path. Not saying that there's no conflicts, but we are working now on a really interesting pathway to conflict resolution, grievance resolution. We had a beautiful workshop on the weekend with a beautiful woman from a community who's lived in a community 40 years or something called Carol Perry. And she has worked in the conflict resolution space for almost the equivalent length of time. So we're very aware of trying to develop tools that will act proactively for us to maintain the best place we can here. I wouldn't like anybody to come here thinking that it is utopia and that they're not going to have to do some work. But I think that personal growth is community growth. So there's something in it for me to learn about conflict resolution or skipping it in the first place, trying to avoid it, and what are the techniques and things like that. So what's in it for me? Hopefully it's going to improve my relationship with my husband, my children, nieces and nephews, my neighbors, my suburb, my country, and my world. It's just a little stone in the lake, hopefully has ripples that go further than I'll ever know.
That's something that really attracts me to intentional community, the personal development, which then has its ripple effects. Because if we can get used to hearing difference of opinion, working through to either get a compromise or a third way, we're able to work on our triggers because we're realizing these things we're brushing up against people, and we're able to have processes that's so beneficial to all the other relationships that we have. And if we can see it as an opportunity rather than, oh gosh, I'm just going to have to deal with stuff that I don't like to deal with. But we say, these things that I don't like to deal with are actually going to be better for me if I can deal with it. Then, wow, the world actually is a peacemaking tool, isn't it? That living in a neighborhood where we have to work on things that are normally creating conflict, but where in an intentional community, you work it through, would actually be so much more peaceful because we'd be personally practicing these skills in peacemaking or conflict resolution.
Yeah, it's so true. And the interesting thing is, we can use the word be selfish, because if I'm selfish and learning conflict resolution and trying out these different things, then that gives me a much more intimate relationship with my partner. That gives me an improvement in my relationship with my children and my grandchildren and all of the rest. And yet, being brought up in different religions, we were taught not to be selfish, be selfless. And so for me, I'm heading in a direction that what is in this for me? What is in it? If this pathway to conflict resolution at Narara Ecovillage, what's in it for me? What's in it to bring Carol Perry down? What's in it for me? Oh, a lot.
And I think as
Doesn't have to be
founders,
altruistic.
well, if it is altruistic, I believe there's a point of burnout. If we're only doing something for others, we're going to run out of steam. A lot of founders and visionaries haven't structured what they want to do in such a way that they're getting fed and nourished by the project as they go. They also want to jump ahead too quickly, so they take on too much that's just outside of their wheelhouse. Burnout then creates for the project to die, what would have been a good project. So I think that's actually a really important piece to say, what's in it for me at every step of the way, so that as a founder visionary that's carrying a very big idea and has to pull a lot of other people along, it really is nourishing to you. And then you've got energy to give.
And so going back just quickly, if I can, to the journey, the land did come back on the market in 2012. And by that time, we had a database. And so we were able to say, okay, how the hell are we going to finance this? We had a database, and to say, okay, the shit's hitting the fan now. This property is back on the market. What are we going to do? It's put up or shut up. We had a meeting, and because we had that database and that 4 years walking in the wilderness, if you like, and not knowing, really was useful looking back on it. And so time to everything, there's a time and purpose under heaven. We needed that. It wasn't wasted. It was growing up trust and a database and possibilities and dreaming and more possibilities. And so we had the land, supposedly. And so we needed people to open their wallets. And if you want people to open their wallets, you've got to be able to look them in the eye. There has to be some trust. And so we had a founding group, and the founding group could look people in the eye and say, open your wallets. Because what do people hear when you say to them, open your wallets? It's, oh, here's a shy stuff. No, that's not us. We're in this too. We're opening our wallets to the same extent. And so then that became by the people, for the people. And so we were able to actually buy this place in 2012. We signed the contract. I just wanted to finish that story. In the darkness came some light. We can't determine the timing of things. And it's how to find contentment in that journey that's not working out timely for you. You can fight it, but you really can't fight a readiness level for something to be born or for the next stage to happen. We can try, but you're just working negatively against your own immune system, so it's not worth it.
Very sage advice. Yes, absolutely. Wow, that's wonderful. And yes, so it's good to see that any setbacks are then opportunities, as you said, to reframe it and use that time in a different way. Instead of moving ahead, you deepen rather than going forward. I'd like to jump in here to make an announcement about the Women Revolutionizing Housing Network. We're meeting online every month so that women anywhere in the world who are founding, creating, visioning a project of something to do with housing would like to be able to get together to meet other women, to learn together, network, share resources and ideas, and even do masterminding for women who have a project and would like specific questions or advice to advance their project. So to be able to get announcements of the upcoming events, go to commonground.net.nz, sign up for our newsletter where we share regularly around alternative housing, connected living, regenerative ways of developing and doing communities. I look forward to hearing from you there and having you join our community of Homefullness. I'm interested to know, just as you were saying, around people putting money down, what were your asks at that time? How much from minimal to maximum were you asking?
Yes, so we actually had, Dave and I paid for a valuer to come and value this place. And because we were bidding at 9.5 million back then when we had the developers in 2008. In 2012, the global financial crisis had happened, and we had no idea. What do we put a tender in for? The valuer said 5 million. So 4.5 million less than where we were in 2008. So we're like, okay, don't bid any more than that. Then we went to the meeting, the database, come to this meeting. You know, it's really important. Put up or shut up. We just said, we're bidding 5 million when we can't put that bid in unless we've raised 4 million. And we can't raise any money. We can't put the hat around. Otherwise, we'll end up in jail because we haven't got an entity set up yet. We're planning probably a cooperative. We don't need a company structure because we're not trying to make profits for third-party shareholders. So we were thinking about a co-op, but that'll take some time to set up. All we can take tonight is pledges. How much can you do? We're in for 50,000. Great. At the end of the night, we had $2 million. Not enough. We said we have to have $4 million worth of pledges before we put in the bid for the tender for 5 million. We had a great project director by that time, and he worked with others. It was years of building up trust. Worked for the next couple of weeks. After 2 weeks, we had $4 million worth of pledges. We found a lawyer who would quickly set up a co-op for us. And so we put the tender in, $5 million. And then, of course, it was a waiting game. That money came from about 24 people traditionally call them the pioneers. So we had to say 50,000. Okay, we're in for 250,000. And so we had to redo a mortgage. We had a duplex that we owned and the family were living in. So we sold one of the duplexes and had to change things around. Different people got money different ways of these 24 pioneers or whatever. And maybe we could have gone further if we'd have had more time, but it was rushed. It often is in that last critical moment. But you can see how it was definitely one of us had really deep pockets. It was just that kind of great feeling of solidarity in the beginning with these people who were prepared to open their wallets. And it wasn't terribly risky. This property had a development control plan on it for about 120 lots. So on the back of the envelope, it didn't look ridiculous. We still had to get a DA, and the council could have changed their minds. But it was owned by the New South Wales government, the property, and the government had set all this up to make the sale more valuable. State government. People power takes a while to build, and the trust has to be built up. Maybe that all worked for us, the delays and things.
Yeah, because that is quite a bit of money to raise, and you still have all the development costs of putting in the infrastructure, and then people still need to have a house on the land. So that's quite a bit considering there's still a lot of that on top, but you managed to put a vision together well enough and build the trust. So that's pretty amazing. Can you give us the year when that sale went through?
Yeah, that was 2012. We signed the contract and then settled in 2013. And then the work started, the development work, putting in some roads. And we had a great project manager in a fellow called John Talbot, who was attracted to Findhorn in his early years in northern Scotland. But also had not only attracted in the spiritual sort of sense, but had done a development over there. And he was living in Sydney at that time. I always say I stalked him for 6 years. And it took a while to convince him that this was a place he needed to be. And I think perhaps the Almighty or the universe helped me with that too, convincing him that this is the place he needed to be. He was a great project director in the early days.
Oh, I did get that impression from being there that people weren't just passionate about the idea or living there, but a lot of people seem to have the expertise in either property development or project management or financial management or fundraising, and somebody else who knew about off-grid. So it seemed to be that you also got a team around you, a property development team that took this expertise and applied it to the project. I was just wondering about that in terms of payment, because there's a fine line between people who are professionally skilled, capable, and putting their professional time into something, but they're also going to be living there. How do you manage that compensation part so people don't feel either used or they're giving more than somebody else who's just going to be able to move in? So how did you compensate those professionals?
A lot of our professionals came from people who were interested in it. The chair of our board was a lawyer banker. That we had me and a few others as accountants. We had John Talbot as a civil engineer. We had my husband as an electrical engineer and an expert in renewable energy. So we were very lucky in what we have. We've almost got one of everything in the village, except during COVID, we didn't have a hairdresser, and that was very difficult for us. And of course, once you've got your project director in place, he had to rally the other people, and they had to be paid at commercial rates. There was no doubt about that. But some other people who were committed to the project as well were able to work for the project and defer some of their fees till later, which was super generous. It's only now that those people who deferred money that they should have got many years ago are actually catching up. Those people were being paid on a success fee basis. If the project didn't get up by a certain time, then they wouldn't get their deferred fees. So that was very generous and very useful at the very beginning of the project because the cash flow was tight.
Yes.
The other way is that when people decided they were going to buy a block, and don't forget there were 24 or 20 people who'd put in the money, we knew they were going to be buying a block, and to a certain extent they'd already put in some money. Anybody who joined would pay a certain amount to join the co-op, and that was immediately used to help pay for the infrastructure. People would pay for the infrastructure by paying off their lot. Our financial controller had it ready to send to the guy who ran the backhoe or the excavator, building the roads. We were covering it that way by people paying for their lot in installments. And then to get the diversity in age group, we actually wanted young people to be able to do that. But they couldn't get a loan from the bank until they had a title in their hand. And it was going to be a while before they had a title. Some of us with extra money would pay their installments, and then they had a loan agreement with people to say that when they got their loan, they would repay those people. So that gave us the all-important multiple age group demographic that we have here. We have something like 220 Narara, not all living here yet. Some of them are still building their houses. But we have about 220 with about 60 kids under the age of 18. So that demographic is really important. Many people thought we were developing an over 55. For us, that's not a sustainable model. So in brief, how we did it. And to this day, we haven't had a bank involved. We've been able to call out for loans within the membership now because there's a good critical number, a good critical mass, 150 adults or something.
Yeah. So the banks are only involved to individuals for their home loans. If they need a mortgage, they have the title that they can leverage, or the bank needs that. But otherwise, as a development or as a cooperative company, that you've been able to rely on loans from people with probably very low interest returns for those people.
Yes, loans or people paying for their lot
in advance. Yes. Because I remember learning about the cooperative membership being ahead of then having a lot or a home there. So people buy into the cooperative, they're a cooperative member, and then that gives them an option to be a part of the physical community. But that could be a while before they actually physically decide to come and join, but they're still paying cooperative fees.
In those days, in the early days, people paid $30,000 for 30,000 shares. But that they were valuable shares. They're all the common buildings here. And there's a lot of common buildings because they used to employ 100 people here. So there's offices, laboratories, sheds, hothouses, all this infrastructure here, the village hall, the admin blocks, big. And so they were real, if things went wrong, they were real assets. So it wasn't just pay 30,000 to us to help us get going. No, these were shares in the co-op, which had assets, even at the very beginning. So it was, although it sounded, where are people going to get that from? And that's true. It does cost to be here. But the lovely thing is that over the years, there's been more creativity around that. And sometimes a few people have joined together, form a membership together. Yes, my husband and I are a membership together, but there are some people who would have started out as strangers. But as you say, they've had opportunities to get together and think, oh, that person, I could be neighborly with that person. They had coffees together, dinners together. And yes, they've formed a kind of a neighborly alliance. And that's been helped by something you mentioned in the beginning, by a wonderful woman who started 5 years ago, she was saying the other day, every Wednesday night, there's a collaborative living. It's called CLAN, Collaborative Living at Narara Ecovillage. It's a Zoom that happens at 5 or 5:30 every week. And there's a couple of people that hold it now. It's wonderful because there's no agenda. Anyone can turn up on that Zoom, ask questions or just say hello. We have one woman who's joined us from Sweden. So she comes in a lot of times on a Wednesday night because her brother is here. They chat if they want to on a Wednesday night. They ask different questions and she stays connected that way. That's something that anyone can find out about simply by sending an email to info@nararaecovillage.com. And then you can just say, oh, could you send me that link, please? And then you've got the link. So that's a nice connection thing. And then you may see somebody else that could be, gee, I really relate to that person. We've got similar values, can reach out separately to have a cup of tea, and that could start something and has started something. There are quite a number of creative projects happening in the area to build community and also to make affordability more possible and effective.
That's great that there's this creative thinking around that affordability piece. And for the younger generation, that's really interesting to hear how you managed to make that work. That was your intent, and you managed to get that diversity of age as well. The other thing that I think is really special about Narara is that you're not just an intentional community, which is great in and of itself, but you've also an eco-village around a mission to make things better in certain areas. It could be ecological, which I know you've got a lot of ecological goals, and also the social and economic goals as well. Could you speak a bit to that eco-village mission?
Oh, definitely the three stool legs are important. The economics, I've talked about the economics. At the macroeconomic level, we don't have a bank involved. That's huge. And then there's little things at the microeconomic level too happening. Like, for example, we have a cooperative shop. And so we're able to bring food to all our members just a little bit above cost. Things like flour, sugar, lentils, maple syrup, and honey are in the shop. And we're able to bring them to people at cost, what we buy them for at the wholesale price, because there's such a lot of lovely volunteers who volunteer in the shop to work the shop and to buy things in bulk and put them into containers and all that sort of stuff. So that's at the micro level, there's economic benefits too, to have being a community. Things like we're looking for a farmer right this minute who will take on the business of growing more food here, because this land was a horticultural institute and it's difficult for us to do it with volunteers. People are busy. So we're looking at somebody to run a business within the cooperative. And so that will hopefully be bringing beautiful, organic, locally sourced, locally grown food to people here at what we hope is a reasonable price. So that's the economic side of things at the macro level, and then at the micro level. The environmental stuff is happening. We have horticulturalists and ecologists and so many people that are keeping us focused on different aspects of that. So that's all the things that you can imagine with our water and our power. We produce 7 times more electricity than we need because we're all got solar panels, and now there's a common battery and people getting house batteries, and it's such an rapidly evolving area in that. But we're on the forefront of that here too. We are surrounded by forest on 3 sides. We're lucky to be constantly reminded of the importance and the beauty of nature. And right now is the time of the bunya nuts. So we have bunya trees in the forest dropping huge cones full of food. And so it's so lovely. We're collecting those, and we're going to have a bunya nut festival in a couple of weeks. Get these nuts and do yummy things with them and that. And of course, the social is important. The center of town is the coffee cart, and there's a beautiful woman there called Candy who knows the importance of having a coffee cart at the heart of the village, and she tirelessly gives her efforts to improving it and continuing it. And different people will organize Fisho's Friday, where they light up the barbecue on certain Fridays and have loud music. Kids are welcome. There's a pool table and a table tennis table. There's dancing in the dark musical gigs that different people organize and put on. So the social thing, the kindness is there too. If somebody's sick and we know about it, somebody will drop something on their doorstep. I remember when somebody during COVID came back from overseas and had to isolate in their own home. And I remember people were dropping things off and they couldn't go to the shop. People were shopping for them. And then eventually we got this email saying, please, no more chocolate or wine. So that's a beautiful thing. We've got somebody having a knee replacement at the moment, and I think they're in rehab, but I've got in my diary, coming home on this date, cook a meal for them, and did it for the last knee, and we'll do it for the second knee, and hopefully he's only got 2 knees, so we should be fine after that.
And I also, when I was there, above and beyond the opportunities for residents, you've got a bigger mission around reducing carbon, energy use, waste, food miles, that kind of bigger data points. And you were even able to get a status where people can give donations to that mission-centered work as a tax-deductible donation. Tell me a little bit about that layer of your organization.
As I mentioned to you in the beginning, we set up a very basic entity at the very beginning called an incorporated association, and it was called Sydney Coastal Ecovillage. Personally, I thought that it would just disappear once the co-op started, but more far-sighted people saw, let's keep that. And so it's now evolved to the point that it does have charitable status. It's not necessarily to enhance Narara Ecovillage. It's got real ecological principles and aims and things. So it's to enhance the ecological, environmental aspect of things. I guess it's an adjunct, and certainly people who are administering it, some of them do live here, but it's not a way for us to siphon money to our swimming pool objective or whatever we've got. So yes, that's happening on the side there.
Yeah, I really like that partnership approach. There is also this higher benefit that a lot of the residents that they would like to contribute, and that partnership that Narara has. And I think people maybe just having that little bit of extra free time being boosted by the positive feeling they get in that neighborhood, they can contribute to this other cause that is benefiting the greater environment. So I love that alignment your community has.
The fellow who's spearheading that is going to be working towards some land that they're going to license from Narara Ecovillage to set up a new arboretum. So we have in Strickland Forest, which is the forest that surrounds us, the oldest rainforest arboretum in New South Wales. I've been there this morning, just like it's 6 minutes for me to get there. I love to go and breathe deeply in there, and I feel it opens up my chest and my lungs. It's just fabulous. But anyway, a little bit of land has been licensed, and that'll be one of the first projects in this eco-living network that now has this not-for-profit and tax deductibility status.
So if there were other visionaries and future founders, if they wanted to learn from Narara to get the models and your development process and how you set up the organizations, the cooperative, is there a way do you make that available, any of the documentation? How would people access this wisdom?
Yes. I think, first of all, trawl through the website. And although I'm definitely a generalist, the story, I think, is powerful. To get that out of your head that it's all going to be fixed and finished in 12 months. And it's so hard to get that. I'm lucky to have had a foot in the old camp where for a while there, the only communication, we had the old phone. The only communication was the mail twice a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So I think we were pretty lucky that we had that feeling of spaciousness, but also that feeling that things don't happen in 24 hours now. We can go down the rabbit hole, which is, I wouldn't want to go back. I love what my access is with AI, the internet and that. But I think that's a critical piece. But certainly if they trawl through our website, there are a lot of documents. And if you follow my profile, you can find Lyndall and Dave. And then if you go in there, my book is there as a free PDF. So that's pretty useful. You can then talk about how the project actually started in a story form. I think that's useful because everybody will have their own story. I hope that my story promotes people to develop their story, whatever it is. I do a workshop called The Joy of Purpose, And it's using my journey to Narara Ecovillage to confirm for me that purpose gave me energy to reach a goal. And I take people through that journey to say, forget about my story, but go into your own, allow this to trigger your own and capture these thought flashes right here and now, because they're going to be your guide for eating your elephant.
Yes. Yes. Thank you for writing that story and making that available, and to get onto the website and just see what is there to learn from Narara's story. So is there anything else that you'd recommend for others that are on this journey besides the Narara website? What other things do you use as inspiration?
There's so much to inspiration. I use podcasts for health, for example, to see how I can tweak or what little hacks I can introduce into my life that make me feel that I'm rolling forward in that sphere, whether it be the exercise. And we're so lucky that we have lots more information. At my age, that's important. Or at any age, it's important. I listen to podcasts like that. And I listen to stories from sometimes different faiths. I don't follow any particular religion, but the idea of spirituality, of nature. I listen to nature things. And then I just listen to what the trees have got to say to me. When I walk in the forest, I trust that my thoughts are guided by the nutrients the trees are dishing out to me or something. And funnily enough, I've got some cards that I use. And these are the cards that I just think are so fantastic. They're from the Brahma Kumari. Often if I'm having a podcast, I'll think, what card would I choose? And so I shuffle them. Let's pretend I'm going to a podcast with Zola. Have you got any word for me, Zola? Flexibility. I let myself flow with situations. As a master, I'm not flustered or stressed by difficulties. I let everything go, passing through me like water through my fingers. If I'd have looked at that before and that came up, it would have helped me. It would inform me. And I trust that picking out that card at this particular moment from a full pack is worth listening to. Now, how would that?
Yes, I love it. Getting inspiration from a lot of different places and words of wisdom, spiritual practices, and nature itself. Because I think with property development and thinking about houses and all that real hard stuff, numbers and construction and all that, it can be lost that we're actually developing a living system for living people. We want to develop an evolving system that's continuously learning. It's not typical neighborhoods. It's put the roads in, put the houses in, move the people in, done deal. Now that's finished and we move on.
Yep.
And how people get on there or not and how the cars and all the other structures get on with each other actually can get worse and worse. We see a lot of neighborhoods not doing well, either with traffic or with flooding, so they haven't been built with a way that has evolution and the living systems of humans and nature. And I think connecting with the natural elements is really important to us. Those of us who want to develop housing in neighborhoods that are living systems themselves for living beings need to be informed by the living world, not just taking a property development course or learning some financial accounting. I think it's good to have those skills and attract people with those skills and to keep connected to these other more heart-centered and living-centered ways of thinking.
So I hope that's been useful, and anybody can contact me through Lyndall at nararaecovillage.com at any time. My mouth does way better than my typing fingers. We can always have a chat or something. Any dreams that I can help bring about, more than happy to. But thank you for thinking of me, Zola, and I hope that you'll come back and visit again.
I can't wait to visit with maybe my children and my partner so that they can see where I would like us all to live, like you're living with your family there. And that's how I would like for my family to be, so you can be our inspiration. I'm running this Women Revolutionizing Housing Network, so I'm sure this story is going to be so inspiring to the other women Hopefully you get a chance at some point to be a part of our network too and meet the women leading,
Well, I'll come over
leading
and see you
change.
sometime because I just love New Zealand and have a few New Zealand close friends. So it's be coming over. So we'll gather together then as well.
I'll let you know about the next time we're having a substantial gathering, probably in 2027. And we'll let you know in good time. You could be our special invited speaker.
Yeah, I'd be really happy to present the joy of purpose too, because that I think is more interesting because it hopefully facilitates the beauty in others and the creativity in others. My story's interesting, but it's only interesting if it unleashes the power within others.
I appreciate your time and energy and all that you're doing.
I appreciate you too. What you're doing is great work too, and it all helps. I often think we're an ant on an anthill. We can only carry a little bag. But let's fill the bag as much as we can.
Thank you, Lyndall.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.